Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm coming to you with my February wrap-up, so I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of February, as I'm sure you can tell by the title. It was a pretty light month in terms of reading. I only actually managed to finish 3 books in the month because, to be honest, the first book I finished in the month I didn't enjoy, and it took me a long time to read it, and then the next book that I read also took me quite a long time to read it, and I was really trying to prioritize that over other books, so I was like really trying to focus on that, but I didn't always feel like reading that. I was in a reading slump. That's a very long way to say. I was in a reading slump in February and I only read 3 books. That's a-okay. I'm really trying to focus more on quality over quantity this year. Not that this was like the best reading month ever in terms of quality, but that's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with 3 books. It's fine. Normally I would go over my reading statistics from the story graph, but actually for some reason they are miscategorizing some of the books. So instead of going over that information which isn't correct, I thought I would just skip it this month because it's not very exciting anyway. It was 3 books, 1 thriller, 1 nonfiction, and 1 romance. There you go. And I think I read a total of like a little over 1,000 pages, and my average rating was 3.5 stars because I had 1 2.5, I had 1 3.5, and I had 1 5-star read. That's exciting. Cannot wait to talk about that. First of all, let's talk about my 2.5 star read, which was The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. This is my first book by Stuart Turton. He wrote The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, as well as Devil in the Dark Water, I think it's called. I had never read anything by him before, but I had both of those books on my radar. And then a lot of people said that this book is like classic Stuart Turton. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to take those books off my TBR because I'm not that interested in reading another book like this. I really did not like this. This was actually an advanced reader copy. I believe this book comes out in March. And this is basically a thriller set in the future where essentially the world has kind of ended because there's this fog that has taken over the world and it is deadly to humans. And so pretty much everyone has died apart from this very small community, and they're basically like the people who they call the elders, who are like these really smart, like sciencey people, and they're just very knowledgeable in lots of things. Anyway, and they basically are the only ones who know how to keep the fog at bay. And basically everything is just like going along nicely in this community, but then somebody is murdered and nobody can remember who did it or how it even happened because everyone's memories got wiped. And then with the death of that person, it set into motion the collapse of the system that's keeping the fog at bay. So they now only have 72 hours to find the murderer. Otherwise, it will be the end of humanity. And I honestly just thought that this book was incredibly boring. It was honestly just like a slog to get through. Like I really had to force myself to read it. And because I had an advanced reader copy, I didn't want to DNF it. But yeah, I just didn't like this at all. I also didn't really find any of the characters likable, which normally is not a problem for me with a thriller because I know that that's normally not the point of the thriller. But for this one in particular, I really feel like you were supposed to really be rooting for these characters, and I didn't give a shit. I could not care less about them at all. I also thought that the like pool of suspects was too small, so we kind of went around in circles a lot because it was like, oh, it must be this person, oh no, it's not that person, so it must be this person, and then we just kept on circling back. Yeah, I was just kind of bored the whole time. So it wasn't like it was the worst book I've ever read. That's definitely not the case, but this one just wasn't for me, and I'm sure that if you like Stuart Turton's work and you're used to his style, then you'd probably really enjoy this, but for me, I didn't enjoy it, and hearing that his other books are like written in a similar way is kind of putting me off, so I probably won't read anything else by him. Anyway, so that was the first book I read in the month. The next book that I read in the month of February was actually another advanced reader copy, and this is actually like my first ever physical advanced reader copy from a publisher, which was very exciting for me, and that is a non-fiction book called Maurice and Maralyn, A Whale, a Shipwreck, a Love Story by Sophie Elmhurst. This is basically the true story of Maurice and Maralyn Bailey, who are a married couple living in the UK in the 1970s, and they were basically fed up of life in the UK, which is completely understandable for me, a person who lives in the UK and wants to leave desperately. So yes, they're fed up of living in England in the 1970s, so they decide to sell their house, buy a boat, and attempt to sail to New Zealand. But on their journey, their boat gets hit by a whale, and they end up getting stranded at sea on their little lifeboat and dinghy for, I think, about 4 months, and they have to learn to survive, and they only have each other, obviously. And this was a really interesting read. I really enjoyed certain aspects of it, not everything about about it. But I did really enjoy my time reading it for the most part. It's really crazy to think that they actually managed to survive for such a long time in the ways that they were surviving. Like it's quite crazy just having each other and the way that their relationship grew from that. Whereas I know that for a lot of people being stuck in that situation, you would probably never want to see your partner again after that. But it actually made their relationship stronger. And yeah, I think it was just a really interesting read. And it was a story that I hadn't ever heard of before. However, I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars because there were certain aspects which I do feel like dragged a little bit. It was basically split into 5 parts. And I think the second part got a little bit repetitive. So yeah, certain parts were kind of repetitive. And then I also felt like the ending was just really, really depressing. Like I completely understand, like you're telling the story of somebody's life. So like obviously there are going to be parts which are really sad. But I feel like bits from the end could have been interspersed throughout the story and then it wouldn't have been so depressing at the end because the end was just really sad. This is not the way I wanted to end this story. But for the most part, this was a pretty enjoyable read. I would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. I will say there are some pretty graphic descriptions of animal death because, you know, they were surviving. And if you're particularly sensitive to that, which I actually am quite sensitive to that, and I wouldn't have actually requested this if I'd known that, but I still enjoyed it despite that. I just kind of skimmed those bits because it was pretty graphic. So yeah, if you're very sensitive to that, I would say skip this. But otherwise, if you would like to read an adventurous tale, I would recommend it. And yes, thank you very much to Vintage Books for providing me with this arc. Anyway, and the last book that I read in the month, and my favorite book of the month by far, was, I can't believe it took me so long to read it, but I finally read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I like to think of myself as an Emily Henry girly, although before this, I had only actually read 2 of her books, which were Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, and I hated People We Meet on Vacation, but I absolutely love Beach Read. So because of Beach Read, I was like, I'm an Emily Henry girly, but I hadn't actually read anything else by her. So I finally picked up Book Lovers, which I actually tried to read like a year ago, but because I was reading it on my phone, I really wasn't like enjoying it that much because of the actual like experience of having to read it on my phone, because I had just got a Kindle and I was like in the Kindle zone. But I really just wanted to read this book and I was in such a mood for it. So I borrowed it from the library on my phone, but I could actually deal with it this time because I just loved the story so much. This book basically follows our main character Nora, who is a literary agent, and she and her sister have kind of grown apart recently, and her sister is heavily pregnant with 2 small children at home. So she suggests to Nora that they go on this once-in-a-lifetime trip to this small town, which is actually the setting of a book which Nora was the agent for, called Once in a Lifetime. So they go to this small town, and when she's there, she runs into sort of not really her nemesis, but kind of her nemesis. There's this editor called Charlie Lastra, who she had a bit of a bad run-in with at one point. They basically went out for this work lunch and he was just quite rude, and so she was like, okay, this guy sucks, I don't want anything to do with him, but he happens to be in this small town, and they keep on running into each other and a little romance blossoms. Oh my goodness, I loved this book so much. I highlighted it so much. I absolutely loved their banter. I feel like they had just such a my sense of humor type of humor. Like it just was really hitting the spot for me. I loved all of their interactions. It was so sweet. And I feel like the third act conflict was so valid. Like, oh my god, it actually broke my heart because it actually made sense. It was a realistic third act conflict, and oh my god. To quote my Goodreads review, I laughed, I cried, I swooned. I love this book. It was honestly the best time I've had reading in a little while. I feel like I've read a lot of romances recently and some of them have been a bit hit or miss, but this one was a smash hit. Like, I really need to buy this book so that I can copy my little annotations into it from my library loan before I lose my library loan. So I really need to get on that. But yeah, I loved literally everything about this book. This book was perfect for me. I am considering reading Happy Place, even though I didn't think I was going to because I've heard pretty negative things about that. So I don't know. But I will definitely be reading Funny Story when it comes out. So yeah, those were the 3 books that I read in the month of February. I feel like this is a really short wrap up, but like I literally have nothing else to say. That's it. That's all I read. Anyway, so yeah, those were all the books that I read in the month of February. Please let me know what books you read down below. I would love to know. Please give me all of your recommendations. But yes, that is all I have for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, please leave me a book emoji in the comments so I know you made it to the end. And that's all I have for this video. So I'll see you very soon with another one. Bye. Hello. And I will have another video up very soon. So I will see you then. No, that's not what I say. How do I end my videos? Oh my god, I feel like I haven't filmed a video in such a long time. I don't remember how I finished my videos. There we go. We got there in the end. Oh my god. I can't believe I forgot my outro. How long have I been a booktuber? Like 10 years. And I couldn't remember my freaking outro.
You in the backyard of your old farm in the summer. Stayed there for 3 weeks where we learned to love each other. Wrote you letter.